Welcome to another edition of Ask Andrew, where each week I answer a film-related question submitted by a member of the BMFI community. This week's question comes from Alan, who asks, my brother-in-law teaches history at a local college. He has told me that President Woodrow Wilson had high praise for D.W. Griffith's The Birth of a Nation. Is this true? Most of us who have seen the film find it blatantly racist. How did Wilson feel? Well, this is a really interesting question, and it goes sort of to the core of the issues surrounding the study of history and the study of film history. And I know something about this topic, but I don't know nearly as much about this topic as my longtime colleague and one of our instructors here at Bryn Mawr Film Institute, Paul McEwen, who has been researching and writing about The Birth of a Nation for nearly 20 years. In fact, he wrote a book about it. I'm part of the British Film Institute's BFI Classic series on The Birth of a Nation. So you could say he wrote the book about it, although there are a number of good books on this very important and very troubling film. So to answer this question, rather than having me share my more limited perspective and understanding, I thought we'd hear from an authority on the topic. So, Paul, what do you got?
Thanks, Andrew, and thanks to Alan for this excellent question. The Birth of a Nation is a film that has a ton of mythology around it. When I first started learning about it years ago, I would read frequently that it was the first film shown in the White House, that Woodrow Wilson had endorsed it by saying it was like writing history with lightning, and that was sometimes followed with the next line that he had said, and my only regret is that it is all so terribly true. You could also read that it had been banned in 8 states or caused riots. And I was interested in the history of the film, and when I looked for evidence of any of these claims, they all turned out not to be true. All 4 of them are in fact false. It wasn't the first film shown in the White House. There was at least one shown before, and some evidence recently that some films were shown there 7 or 8 years before to Roosevelt. And so there's this mythology that's grown up around it, and one of the big things is that Wilson endorsed the film. And so it was shown at the White House in 1915, and it was shown because Thomas Dixon Jr., who was the racist preacher who had written the novel and stage play upon which Birth of a Nation was based, was a classmate of Woodrow Wilson's at Johns Hopkins. And so Dixon, kind of realizing the potential that it would have on the film's success if Wilson would endorse it, asked him if he was interested in seeing it, and so arranged the screening. And so we actually don't know what Wilson thought of it. We do know that the screening was used as a kind of endorsement for the film, but that he also then disavowed it, that his spokespeople explained that he had shown the film only as a favor to his old classmate, but he really didn't want to endorse the message of the film. And so there are editorials and mentions in African-American newspapers at the time saying, well, you know, this is the sort of bare minimum that Wilson could do. And so we're grateful for this at least. And that at least is because Wilson was someone whose record on civil rights is pretty bad. He resegregated much of the civil service and really was not someone who helped move Black people forward at all. So it's easy to think that he would have been sympathetic to the film, or at least maybe not have disagreed with it too strongly, but maybe also realized that it wasn't the kind of thing he wanted to endorse. So as with a lot of public figures, it's hard to know sometimes what they actually think in their own head and what becomes the public statement for public consumption. But that phrase doesn't appear very often. The first time it's attributed to Wilson is in a magazine article in 1937, but it gets attributed to him ever since, but there's no real evidence that he actually spoke it, even though it kind of went around the film in some of its publicity at the time. So that's the kind of hazy answer. It's likely that he might have liked it, but there's no actual evidence that he endorsed the film. And in fact, we do know that he disavowed it in public. Thanks. Thanks for your question.
Thanks a lot, Paul. And thank you for checking out this edition of Ask Andrew. If you have your own film-related question that you'd like me to try and answer, or you'd like me to see if I have a colleague who can answer it, please visit the Film Studies Online section of brynmarfilm.org and find the Ask Andrew form. Who knows? Next time, one of us could be answering the question you submitted.